friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. I was off camera for a couple months and I'm back, and I'm really excited to be back because tomorrow is the day that the premiere for the series that I worked on for Netflix, Dancing for the Devil, the 7M TikTok Cult, is released to the wider public. It's a 3-part series which follows the life of TikTok dancers that got trapped in a cult. The story revolves around Miranda Wilking and her family when they went live back in 2022, and a series of dancers that also left, some families that lost their families to this group, and detailing sort of this control that has happened and this world, this underworld that's happening right before our eyes on TikTok, and a guy named Robert Shin who's sort of like the puppet master controlling all of it. And for a lot of you, I think this past month, you've noticed that there was a little bit of a lull on my channel, or that maybe I was trying out different pieces of content or trying to see what I was gonna do and what kind of content I wanted to make. And I'll be honest, this is kind of what happened in May. I found out at the end of April that this series was coming out tomorrow. And when I found out, I was very excited because this is a project that I think is so important. And I think this is a series that gives people, specifically those that have been hurt by the group, an opportunity to share their stories in a space that is very safe and done with compassion and done with a lot of empathy. And the project took as long as it did because ultimately it took a while to, one, have people be able to feel comfortable to participate, and two, navigating all of the emotions that come with leaving a cult and the process of healing. And then on top of that, all of these legal maneuvering that were being done, whether it was going to be a criminal or whether it was going to be civil. And then there was lawsuits that were filed. And so ultimately, a project that was started in March of 2022 came to an end, and I found out at the end of April that this project that I've been working on is finally going to be released. Naturally, the project was incredibly intense for all of us that were involved. The project didn't have like a huge crew, and you're not going to see me specifically on camera very much. You see my face in the very first like 10 minutes. You'll see my face for a little bit, but for the most part, what you will see quite a bit in the series is my Instagram and the reporting I did behind the scenes on Instagram in digital posts where I would write out what I was talking about and share court records and documents. And it is my accounts along with 2 other accounts that are kind of the backdrop of the reporting done. We are basically called like sleuth accounts. We uncovered a lot of the court records. We uncovered and spoke to the people involved. We were able to bring sources to the production company. We were able to establish relationships with ex-members that brought them to the product, like brought them to the project itself. We were able to establish relationships with families where we could introduce the families to the production company. A lot of the work that we did, securing sources and making sure that we could put together a story so that there would actually be content to deliver to a network or a streaming platform, happened before we ever had a platform to begin with. And at the time we were building our product, another company, HBO, announced that they were going to be delivering their own series on it. And so for a period of time, there was 2 competing production companies trying to find sources to work with them and having finite like limited resources because there's only so many people involved in the story. Ultimately, most of the people decided to go with the project with Netflix, and this was even before we had Netflix signed on, by the way. So my role really was very early on, and then throughout the project, it was once they started filming, I was helping them with, do you have this video? Can you provide me this video? Do you have this court record? Can you provide me this court record? And where is your post that says this? So I was providing my content. I was also helping them fact check their resources, and like if they were going to bring up a lawsuit, I was going to be, here's the document. If they had to bring up a court case, I was, here's the post kind of thing. And also helping them with the overall story because the story is so big. It's hard because we only had 3 episodes, and this could have been easily a 10-episode series, but that wasn't what Netflix wanted. They wanted 3 episodes. And when you only have 3 episodes, there's not a lot of time to tell a really long story that is like 30 years in the making. And so there are things, there are topics, there are people, there are side conversations, there is context that's not going to all be in this. And from my perspective, and I know from the Haley's perspective, there was so much more we wished that could have been involved in this, but we also knew the limitations that we were all under, and the producers and the directors also knew the same thing. Like, a story needed to be told, it needed to be compelling, and it needed to be attention grabbing as it could be without being salacious and, you know, like sleazy. You know, like, you don't want it to turn into a tabloid. You don't want it to be a docu-series where it's high drama and it's just like a train wreck. We wanted nothing like that. And so there's things that are not in the series that I think will be a great thing for us to talk about after this comes out and more people are maybe interested in watching it. Like, once you guys watch the series, I think will be a good place to start of all the context that we wanted to include but couldn't because of time, because of limited resources, because of limited people that wanted to talk on camera, and also just like the motivation and the vision the director had for the series. So one of the big things with the director, Deneen, was that he did not want the series to be about Robert Shin. He felt like, and he spoke to The Guardian today in an interview, but he felt like all these cult documentaries that are out there, all it's about are the cult leaders. And it's always about like giving the cult leader what he wants by making the cult leader famous. Because cult leaders, they want the world to be grabbed by their attention. They want all the accolades. And when you make a series, even if it's not a positive one, and you make it all about the cult leader, you're not really getting into the weeds of what that cult leader is doing to the people. And there was, you know, directions that we had. Like, I recommended early on, you know, a model like The Vow with HBO, where they did The Vow and they were following court cases and really working to try to get people out. That was like the vibe I really liked. I wanted to do something where we could help free people. And that was kind of inspiration, but they didn't want to make The Vow, obviously. So really what it became was a story on one part where it's about these victims that are coming out and what that is like coming out and the healing that is like coming out and processing the trauma of coming out, and then discussing what they experienced coming out and while they were in. And then another part of like the families and what it's like to lose a loved one to a cult. So you'll have like parallel stories where you have the Wilkins telling their story of what it's like to lose Miranda. And then you have another story of Melanie and Priscilla where they're 2 sisters that got involved in this cult like back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, and have been involved in it for, you know, over 20 years. Like, Priscilla got out of the cult when we were filming. And I don't know that we even thought she would ever be involved in it, to be honest. I'm so glad that she decided to be involved. Melanie was already involved at that point, and so I'm glad that Melanie was able to bring her sister in to share her story, because Priscilla's story is one that needs to be heard, and it's like so powerful. And so when people talk about that it's just the Wilkin family that's been hurt by Robert, or it's just a fight between Miranda and her parents, it's so far from the truth. So the emotions of it, for me, were like challenging at times, because it's a high stress environment, and I've never dealt with people like literally just walking out of a cult. I had never dealt with like the emotions that come with that. And I had never dealt with people that have been out of a cult getting triggered by the trauma of the story coming back to life. And that created a dynamic for at least me, where I was like, I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to handle it. And it was a learning curve. And I think that was emotional for me because I didn't want to hurt them. And then also, when you're dealing with trauma and topics that are highly charged around alleged sexual assault, physical assault, like alleged labor trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking, that any topics like that, and it's like heavy, your mental health can take a toll. It can take a toll on your, like, when your life is consumed with these really heavy topics. And that was my life, where I was working on this project, and then I had Josh Duggar craps, and then I had the Sister Wives, and it just felt like my whole life was consumed in really heavy content. And then on top of that, while this project was getting started, I got sued by Robert Shin. The lawsuit added so much stress for me personally, but it wasn't just me that got sued. Robert Shin wanted to silence everyone. He wanted to hurt anyone that touched the anointed. I think that's the clip that he says in the series. Like, if anyone tries to harm the anointed, they will be destroyed, or something like that. You can watch it tomorrow. He wanted to silence everyone. And that's what he thought he was going to do with these lawsuits. And so I've been through lawsuits before, y'all, and I didn't want to settle. I wasn't going to settle this time, because I knew that if I settled, one, I wouldn't be able to complete the project. And I wanted to complete the project because I wasn't going to invest my energy and time into something that I cared about and then walk away in the middle of it because I don't want to deal with the stress of a lawsuit. I didn't care how much money I had to spend and how much destruction he was going to try to ruin me financially to do this. I wasn't going to give him what he wanted, because I knew that he wanted me to settle because he believed if I settled that everyone else would settle, and that it would be like this tidal wave of like, see, now the docuseries will never happen. He actually got a copy of my contract like maybe a month ago, and then by then the product was already delivered to Netflix. It was already given a release date, so at that point it didn't matter. Like, I knew that this series would expose everything, and that his own words would literally make my lawsuit go away. It's not going to go away immediately, but I knew that everything that he's been accusing me of doing and saying that I lied about, you'll hear him in his own words say, or you'll hear the victims tell it. And it won't just be me that reported it. You'll also hear him brag about loving the attention he's getting from the media. He brags about wanting to be famous. He makes them sign NDAs. He's telling them to post content so that people, won't get mad at them and think they're in a cult. I knew that we had dancers that were going to share what happened to them. I knew that they were going to talk about the meetings that Robert was holding and how he was telling them to post content and pretend like nothing had happened. I knew that they were going to talk about the NDAs. I knew that they were going to admit that they were in a cult. I knew that, there was going to be discussion about Kylie and what Robert did to Kylie. I knew it was all going to be in there. So I felt confident that if we just get through it and I get to the end goal, that we would put this out. The stress I was feeling would be less, and it's nothing compared to the stress that the survivors have to go through. And everything would be like out to the public. I think I also knew that there was going to be specific scenes and discussion about this being a story that isn't about a dispute between the Wilkins and Miranda, because I knew they were going to talk about Robert's teaching about die to yourself. I knew that the dancers were going to share about how each one of them had been told to cut off their families and to disconnect from their families, and that this teaching was used to, in many ways, isolate them, but he was trying to frame it as you're only doing this temporarily. And then it switched. Once Miranda's family came out, then it was like, oh, now you can see your families, but you're really cutting them off and your family doesn't even know it. And we're going to post photos online to make it look normal, and that we're not making you not see your families. You learn about the games he's playing behind the scenes. You learn about the fact that he's like telling people to race bait and accuse people of racism when racism wasn't happening. Like, he's instructing them to accuse basically Dean Wilking and Kelly Wilking of racism. These are claims that are literally in my lawsuit. And so I knew that once it came out, everything would be out there. Like, you can't dispute my reporting. There's nothing false about what I've reported. He denies all of it. He'll deny he said these words, I bet you guys. I bet you he will deny he even uttered the words that are in the audio clips. Or he'll maybe try to say the audio was stolen. I anticipate he will try to sue Netflix or the director or whoever, I also knew that another one of the claims that is in my lawsuit had to do with it being a management company and a church, and him saying, oh, no, it's all separate entities, but yet it's not at all. ultimately, I don't know how the product will be received. I don't know how the series will be received. So far, it's getting good reviews. And I think for the most part, like the reviews have been in the favor of understanding that Robert Shin is not a good guy and the victims have been failed. And there is a lot of complex feelings that go into coming out of cults and seeking justice and the lack of justice that there is sometimes when people are using coercive control to harm you. Yes, I'm glad that this is coming out for the victims because their voices need to be heard. And I'm just glad that my reporting could help in any way that it could. I'm glad that I was able to play a role, be whatever I needed to do. Like, I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to help. I didn't care what it was. If it meant that I was a consultant, that was fine. If it meant that I was on camera, it was fine. I was fine doing whatever. And ultimately, it was not being on camera and my content being used, but not my face, which I was fine with. To know that everything that's been building up is finally going to be done tomorrow is amazing. And I hope you guys like it. And then I hope you understand why I haven't been on, why I've been consumed, why this month was hard for me. Hard for me, and I worked in the production. I can't imagine what the survivors are going through. I can't imagine the feelings the families are having right now. I know for everyone that was involved, it was so high stress and emotional that I also know that a lot of us were dealing with this heaviness with it coming out. And I'm just looking forward to the truth going out there. And I don't care about the smear campaigns anymore. I don't care if every creator on YouTube that has smeared me about this topic continues to smear me. I don't care if they try to defend Robert Shin after this because they're not the ones that are going to look good defending him. I don't care if they try to switch the narrative and say that I'm attacking victims or I'm doing something wrong or doing this or that, because at the end of the day, their noise is coming from the cult. And any content creator that supports the cult is enabling an abuser that is having people stay stuck. And if you don't want to believe that people are stuck in here and you don't want to believe the victims, then you are not for me. And if you are consuming content that is supporting Robert Shin and you're believing that I'm an evil person, then I am clearly, that person they're talking about is not me. And if you support someone like Robert Shin, you're supporting, in my opinion, a criminal. And I believe he should be held accountable. And I hope he is. My mental health took a hit in May. And I'm not going to let my mental health get beat down again by a lawsuit, by bullies, by anything, because I know it's more important that the truth is revealed. It's more important that the story is told. It's not about me. It was about me, like my mental health took a beating, but that's why I was not on. That's why I wasn't on the camera. That's why I went back to voiceovers. I was feeling exposed and I'm done feeling exposed. And I hope you watch the series and enjoy it. And I hope you understand that sometimes I might disappear and my face won't be on here. And if it is, it's probably because I'm dealing with something privately that is heavy. And it's not easy to get on camera sometimes when the whole world is attacking you on false information from a cult. I didn't at times even feel safe, but I do feel safe now. I feel safe because the story is out. I can hang my head high and know that I will not settle with a bully, and I'm not going to settle with what I believe is a criminal enterprise. Check it out. It'll be available actually at midnight tonight on Netflix. Let me know what your thoughts are. We'll keep on covering it. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it all this way to the end, give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click on the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.